Hello and welcome. Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant. This channel is all about Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, things you definitely should not with your Canadian immigration application. And today's topic is Canadian work experience. It's pretty late into the game that I'm talking about this, but it seems like a lot of you still have a lot of confusion. And considering the last few draws have been pretty much well, they were not CEC specific draws, but they were pretty much for candidates, for applicants who were inside Canada, who have the Canadian work experience. Of course, there were others as well, but by and large, that's who the majority of that category of people who have been receiving invitations. And as we move forward, we also expect or anticipate this category of people will continue to receive the bulk of the invitations because they have the opportunity to score very high in their work experience, in their education, and those points will certainly add. But there seems to be this perennial confusion about Canadian work experience. And let's very quickly talk about what Canadian work experience today. Let's talk about it today, all right? So this is the IRCC website. Obviously, the link is in the description box, so you don't have to worry about the link. Very quickly, we will run through this. This is the eligibility for Canadian work experience. This is the minimum requirement. You must meet the required language levels. So it is CLB 7 if your NOC code is 0A, and if your NOC code is skill types B, then your minimum language requirement can also be CLB 5. So this is the language requirements. Please do not get confused. You don't have to score CLB 7 if your NOC code is if your NOC code is skill type B. If you have a NOC B type of a job, a work experience, even if your language scores is CLB 5, that is acceptable. 5757. Sorry about that. You need to meet 1 year of work experience inside Canada. Now, that is what it says here. And this work experience has to be inside Canada within the last 3 years. Very important, within the last 3 years on the date you are submitting your application, not on the day you have created your Express Entry profile. Those are two different factors, okay? Creating your Express Entry profile, you could have created 1 year back, okay? But on the day you're submitting your application, your period of Canadian work experience has to be inside the 3 year period preceding the date you submit your application. It's extremely important. Now, also very important is that this work experience does not have to be continuous. Guys, this is not federal skilled worker we are talking about. This is Canadian experience class. This work experience does not have to be continuous. It could be staggered, it could be cumulative. You could have gaps, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. That's absolutely fine. You could also have combinations. So you could have NOC A, NOC B, NOC 0, different NOC codes. That's absolutely fine. You can have 12 NOC codes, and that's absolutely fine as long as all those NOC codes are either 0, A, and B, and you have all the documentation for that work experience. So you will still be able to claim Canadian experience points. This is the beauty of Canadian experience class. You can also have combination of full-time and part-time work experience. That is also not a problem. However, everything gets capped at 30 hours per week. So if you're calculating your full-time work experience, if you're calculating part-time work experience, you're calculating combination, cumulative, what you need to remember is that you should have completed 1,560 hours over a period of 12 months. If you have completed 1,560 hours in less duration, you do not get the advantage of that. You cannot claim those points. You have to complete 12 months, 1,560. Both these conditions have to be met. It's not that you can work for 12 months and not have 1,560 hours. And it cannot be that you have completed 1,560 hours but not completed 12 months. So both have to be done. And if you're falling short of either of two, then continue working, and that additional period of time and the additional hours will compensate, and you will get those points for the Canadian work experience. Also, more than 30 hours you cannot calculate. So if you've been working 40 hours a week, you cannot calculate 40 hours to contribute towards 1,560 hours. That is another one. It has to be 30 hours. You cannot calculate more than 30 hours. So even if you have 40, 40, 40, calculate that as 30, 30, 30, so that you can come to the figure of 1,560 over a period of 12 months. Extremely important. Now, most important one where there is so much of confusion, the work experience has to be gained while working in Canada, inside Canada, physically within the boundaries, within the land border, geographically inside Canada, while you also have a temporary residence status which authorizes you to work, which basically means any period of work that you have in Canada while you were studying on a study permit, that work experience is not acceptable. That work experience does not count. Any period of work experience while you were studying in Canada or you were on a co-op, that does not count towards your Canadian work experience. You have to have a valid authorized period of stay, so which authorized period of working stay, which basically means that your period of stay in Canada has to be as a worker. Postgraduate work permit, open work permit, closed work permit, LMIA exempt work permit. It has to be on a work permit. Otherwise, that period of work experience is not considered. Also, extremely important is that you cannot be self-employed. So people who are working, who have formed their own corporations because they want to save on tax, or they're working as contractors on corporation, they're not receiving a salary, but they issue an invoice and they get a check. Those periods of work experience can also not be considered for express entry in for Canadian experience class. And this is very, very important for the truck drivers. Most of the truck drivers who would now become eligible in express entry from the 16th of November onwards, once the new NOx system comes into play, your work experience, if it is not gained as an employer-employee relationship where you were getting a paycheck, there was CRA deductions from your salary, then your work experience unfortunately will not be considered as eligible. Please make sure that your work experience is not as self-employed, not as contractor, where you are a self-employed individual within a corporation. That work experience will not be considered eligible. Also, how you can calculate your work experience, this link is in the description, so you don't have to worry about it. You have to be earning a salary, you have to be earning a commission, even if it's not a salary. So this period of work will be considered eligible. You will not be eligible if you are a refugee claimant in Canada. You are working without authorization, means if you do not have status, you are on a study permit, that period of work, it will not be counted. Your work experience was gained without temporary resident status in Canada. Again, you will not be able to claim points for that either. Your work experience can be in one or more. That's what I said. You can have any number of jobs as long as they cumulatively add to the Canadian work experience of 1 year. You will be able to claim points for it. As I said already, self-employment and work experience gained while you were a full-time student doesn't count towards the minimum requirement for this program. That's where it says, okay? So that also clarifies, this is what it says. There is no minimum education requirement for Canadian experience class, so there is no problem with that. You don't have to have any minimum education. Of course, the higher the educational credentials, the better the points. That goes without saying. And as I said, the language ability, CLB 7 for NOC 0 and A jobs, benchmark CLB 5 for NOC B jobs. We've already told you that. You obviously have to be admissible in Canada. Where can you live in Canada? While submitting your application for Canadian Express entry or Canadian Experience Class Express entry, your intention should not be to live in Quebec. You must plan to live outside the province of Quebec. That is the most important. Mind you, it says you must plan to live outside the province of Quebec. It does not ask you where you work, whether you work in Quebec or not. So working in Quebec is not the issue. It's living in Quebec, which should be a concern if at all you're looking at submitting an application and you're currently living in Quebec under express entry, of course. I will also, so this is pretty much it as far as the basic criteria for Canadian experience class is concerned. And again, the ministerial instructions, also the link for this is in the description box. This is the ministerial instructions which govern how it is administered, how this program, Canadian experience class, is administered in express entry. Again, here it says, for the purpose of this section, which is Canadian work experience, it is acquired by a foreign national in Canada. Okay, and I keep repeating that because this is where the biggest confusion is, where it says that your work experience should be inside Canada. If your work experience is not inside Canada, unfortunately, you will not be able to claim that period of work. This is the most important one. If you have understood this, if you have got the hang of this, this is going to be the most important factor, because there are a lot of people who have basically been allowed to work remotely. So they have gone back to their home country, they've gone back to India, Pakistan, Middle East, wherever, US, of course, as well. And they continue to work from there. And they continue to sort of get salaries in Canada with the deductions. And it is their understanding that that work experience will be counted. It will not be counted because, and I've showed it to you a couple of times already, it is acquired by a foreign national in Canada, in one or more occupations listed. So again, it's in Canada. The text is very clear. The law is very clear. Your work experience has to be gained inside Canada for you to be able to claim your work experience points. Again, this is the ministerial instructions. Please, by all means, do feel free to take a look at it so that you can get better understanding of what this is about. Work experience in Canada is what Canadian Experience Class is about. And if you have completed 1 year of work experience, then you would be able to claim those points. Now, also in Express Entry, a lot of people get confused with the fact that they get an invitation earlier than they complete the period of work experience. So they've completed 11 months, but they received the invitation. And again, the confusion is, should I submit my application or not? IRCC is aware of this glitch because the system calculates the work experience based on month year. So the starting month is always calculated as the first date of that month, and the ending month is calculated as the previous month of the of that calendar year for you to be able to claim points, and therefore you get your points 1 month in advance. But that does not mean you cannot continue. As I said, IRCC is aware. Please continue with your application. However, only submit. When I say submit, it basically means you upload all the documents, press the submit button, pay the fee. That submission process. You only submit your application after you have completed your legal valid period of work experience, so that you are eligible under the Canadian Experience Class and can claim those points. I hope this very short video would have given you the clarity as to what Canadian work experience is all about. If you still have doubts, if you still want to discuss this in person, well, then there is always that link. You can sort of book a consultation with us one-on-one, so we can explain this to you better. That's also the contact details of our office. If you're looking to hire our services, you're more than welcome to do that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and of course, please share and like the video if you think this was of any value. Once again, this was a short one, but I hope it has given you the much needed clarity that it was meant for. Thank you so much for joining in, and I shall see you next time. Stay safe, take care.